Hello world, Justin Tucker here, continuing on the video tutorial series about taking a Drupal 7 commerce platform and configuring it to where it can take registration, event purchases, as well as memberships. And we're kind of trucking along with all the core components that we think we're going to need at this point. All this code and all this work I intend to make as a downloadable file so that you can just kind of take this work and inherit the benefit. Hopefully it can help you in your organization. In this video, I think we're actually now ready to maybe start adding some fields to our content types we added earlier. So I spent a couple videos where we made content types, we made product types, we made line item types, we made different taxonomies. And now I think it's time to start looking at fields for all of these things. So one thing I realized that we may want to add another content type for is a photo gallery. Not only a photo gallery for the website as a whole, but each event, it's not uncommon that, this is a pretty big deal, and pictures often accompany awesome events, especially if they're annual. So we're going to add a content type called photo gallery, and the idea behind this is going to be that it gives us a way to add a photo gallery per registration event is essentially what I'm calling this. A registration event is really the generic term to maybe mean conference, maybe mean convention, annual event, something to that effect. So we added the content type of photo gallery. I'm going to go add a category real fast called photo gallery. So I've added a new vocabulary. Actually, I'm sorry. I know I just said in the earlier video, don't change the machine name, but because I know I don't have anything that relies on it, I'll do that. Okay, so a little backing up there, but I think a photo gallery will be good to add in. And again, we may be adding more content types as we go and kind of discover through this thought experiment what else we might need. So I figured we'd start with the main one, the registration event. This is going to, in my mind, be the nucleus, if you will. So when we fill one of these out, so if you have an annual registration, what we're effectively doing here is making a form that when you fill it out, it's going to, in this example, reflect all the material about the annual convention of this year. This video is made in 2018, so we'll just have this fictitious 2018 annual convention. So next year, you would fill out this form again. So right now, this form is very boring. If we look at what that form looks like, we basically have title and body. We have some other stuff down here, which we see because we're admin. We'll get to those later, but we have title and body, and this is exactly what we see right here, title and body. So this is the place in Drupal where we go to the form we made, the content type of the type that we made, and we start to add fields to it that we want to have filled out when we create a new annual convention. So I have already created some fields. So we added that. So the title is already in there. The body, we can just leave it. Usually that's a great description field, or just for basic information about the convention, what to expect, all that good stuff. We're going to add an image field, a date field, a late registration date. So obviously the date the event occurs is a different day than when a late date is going to cause different products to be available. And we also have a contact number. Maybe we want to give the user contact information, the address where it's located. So there's a couple ways to do this. I think in this example I'll allow this field to allow multiple, just in case you've got a convention that maybe there's well, actually this just brings up a different point. So the address of the location will be the same, but you need to add, be able to add hotel and lodging information. So let's just go make that content type real quick, now that I think about it. Alright, so we're going to make a form that is basically going to be dedicated to the idea of collecting information about places to stay when you are in town for this event. And again, if this kind of feels cryptic as to how is this going to fit together, that's coming. Just for now, if you can follow along and understand, we've got to have these elements in place before we can do that. That's really what we're doing here. So hotel and lodging, okay, very good. Okay, so yeah, the address, so this, what I meant by saying, the address here is, the venue, or, convention center, for example. But maybe there are 2 hotels that are available. Okay. Furthermore, maybe next year, 2019, there's going to be 3 hotels that need to be available. What we just did here will give us the system to be able to say, okay, yes, in 2018, this is what the scenario will be. In 2019, we'll be able to, oh, hostels. How funny. I really didn't do that on purpose. 2019 we'll be able to specify 3 different locations that belong just to this event. So, but for now, and if you feel that we're missing a lot, like product information and stuff like that, that is not, we're not ready for that yet. So what we're going to do here is add an image field. Maybe we want a hero image for this event. Oftentimes there's some special logo or something for the event. So that's what this image field will be designed for. We'll make a date field of the actual event date. I guess we'll give the option of a range because the event will have an end date. And we're also going to have a late registration date, which should just be a single date. Contact number field. So I think I need to go grab, let's see, Drupal 7 telephone module. Well, let's see. I guess I'll just take him. Or you know what? We can leave this very open-ended because this will be an administrative field anyway. Oh, back to this. So yeah, this will actually just be a text field. And then address, we actually have the address module enabled, so that will be another field type. And then we're going to add reference fields to these guys so that when we actually fill out speakers, sponsors, and vendors for the system as a whole, we'll be able to use a checkbox and select the ones that belong to this registration event. So to get started with that, I'm going to go into the content type registration event and click Manage Fields, which we were just at. And so our first thing here is going to be an image, which, let's see if we've got one already. We do. So these 2 fields actually came with Drupal when we installed it with the standard install. It came with article and basic page. So I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback on this. This is another huge, powerful thing of Drupal, is it gives you the ability to reuse fields, which hopefully through this series you'll be able to understand and appreciate the importance of that. The file directory for this, so this is kind of neat. So here I'm actually going to say anytime that this instance of this field is used, we want it to upload to a folder called, let's see, registration event hero image, okay, for example. Well, let's just keep it clean. And it will actually create a folder, a subfolder with this name, and images that are uploaded through this field instance will get put in there. So you don't have to have a giant bucket that it all goes into. WordPress does this with their media library out of the box. It's very annoying. We'll give you the ability to add as many as you want, and we'll also enable the alt and title field just for good old SEO. Because this will be an admin engaged field, I would leave all these alone. There's no need to limit yourself here. And if there is a default image, like a no image or something to that effect, you can put that here. In this use case, probably not. That's really helpful for when you've got like membership profiles and someone doesn't have their profile picture. Then you have a default, graphic or something. So we'll save settings, and now we have added our image field. And now I'm going to go to add an event date, and I do not have a date field, so I'm just going to make this a clean field called date. We can probably reuse that, and you'll notice that under field type, here's all the different field types I get. And these are all very different and very important. We'll be using, I think, pretty much most of them. But we're going to use a date field here, and I've got the date pop-up module turned on, and here's the pop-up calendar is the format that I'd like to use to engage with it administratively. This is kind of important stuff here, because once you set this and fill something out that uses this date field, it's pretty much locked. You're going to have a hard time changing it. So you have to ask yourself, how granular do we want to say something starts? Okay. Down to the second is pretty granular. Now, I know in the fishing world, with fishing tournaments, some tournaments start by sunrise, and the sunrise in that day may be or will be on a particular minute and second. So I don't think they count the seconds in that example, but they sure do get down to the minute. So, it may start at 6:37 a.m. So this kind of depends on your use case here. I'm going to go ahead and say down to the minute just to keep the option. I think seconds a little overkill. And we'll collect an end date, but we're not going to make it required. So leave this unchecked, and that will be optional as to whether you want to state a date range or just a start date. And then you can cache the dates if you want. I'm not going to do that right now, and save. We have other things to configure. Is this a required field? Since you're the one that's going to be using it, well, actually, yeah, let's make that a required field, because if you forgot to fill it out, your users will be confused. And the help text, enter the date of the event. This is important here, this little open accordion area. The date entry options, get it to something that you're accustomed to. So, April 9th, 2018 in this time format, not military. This is also important. If you want to backdate things, you can allow this. You can also schedule how many years are we going to allow this field to go into the future. And then time increments. This is important too. So I'm just going to say 1 minute again to give the most options. We can display all day checkbox. And then do we want this above or none? And then for the default date, it says now. I'm going to say no, none to that, because if you're doing this correctly, you're probably filling this out far in advance of when the event actually is, obviously. So we'll say no default date there, and then the default end date will also just say no default date. We will only allow one field here, and that should be good. Okay, our date field is added. Now let's add a late registration date. This will also be a date field. I'll kind of run through this. Like the last one. I'm not going to collect an end date. I will go into here and change it to something I like. Good to go. We'll say none. Allow one value. Okay, that looks good. Contact number. So we just decided this will be a text field. And this will allow a lot of flexibility. So you'll be able to add, different numbers and kind of just write it out as text. And what we'll do here, we'll leave it as plain text and we'll allow as many values as you want. So, primary line, emergency line, hotel number, or whatever. We'll leave it flexible like that. Address, so I'm going to say address, and this is going to be of type postal address, and we only really get dynamic address form. So when we configure this field, nothing to do here, but you do have some options here which does affect the experience. So obviously this will be use case specific, available countries. Okay, so this is going to drive what countries are even available to select. All right, United States obviously is where I am, and then you can do select country or default country, which this kind of becomes the default country if we're only allowing one to be picked. And then you can have some format handlers to hide things if you want to. So I'm just going to leave this the way it is. We're going to only allow one value. I'm just going to choose United States and say default country United States. And go ahead and save that. And then reference fields. So the other thing that we're going to add to this is some reference fields that once we do add in some content for speakers, sponsors, and vendors, the actual profile and scenario of which speakers, sponsors, and vendors belong to any given registration will change from year to year and from event to event. And so this is a system that will allow us to select the specific profile or, scenario of which speakers, sponsors, and vendors are going to be at this particular event. And the way we start that process is with what's called a user reference field. So I'm just going to name that for what it is, and that's a reference speaker. And we have this field called entity reference, and I am going to choose this. All this stuff does matter here. So these two values right here would allow you to enter the form inside of this form. So it's a form within a form. Select list is another way to go. We're going to choose checkboxes and radio buttons so that, provided you don't have many hundreds of speakers, sponsors, and vendors, which you might, checkboxes should do fine. Now, if you do have hundreds or thousands, you might need to do autocomplete and kind of type in each one as you know you need them. So in this case, though, we're going to say checkbox. We're going to say reference speakers, actually. Yeah. And we're going to save this. And the configuration is basically asking us here, what bundle or what content type effectively did you make that you want to be able to reference? And in this case, it will be the speaker type. And that is all we have to do right now. Now later we may get a little fancy and choose this option and actually go create a view that controls how this list displays. Maybe we want it to be in alphabetical order by their first and last name versus by their username, which is what this will want to do by default. Or I'm sorry, in this case, the speaker will not be a user. The speaker will be a page. Okay, so I guess that's a really good distinction to make right now, is that a speaker, a sponsor, and a vendor are going to be pages on the website. We can absolutely relate that to a user under the People tab here, which we'll get to later, but that's what's going on here. Is this is going to reference a speaker page that's been filled out. And again, at this point, we have not added in any speakers, so we're not going to see any in this list. So this is actually correct. And we'll get to what entity reference prepopulate means later, but for this field, we don't need to worry about it. We do want to say unlimited number of values, confirm it's for the speaker, and save that. We're going to do the exact same idea for sponsors and vendors. These can be changed in the future if needed too. And this will be for sponsors. Make sure we can choose as many as we want. And then reference to vendors. Save that. Choose vendor. Choose unlimited. And we should be good. Okay, so I'm going to kind of rearrange these. All right, and this is effectively what we've done is built a form. Okay, so I'm going to save the order of this, and this is the order of the fields that will present to me as an admin when I want to fill out a new registration event. So again, an example of this, we'll call this the 2018 perfectly optimized annual conference. And let's see if there's a picture we want to upload, or actually, let me upload my logo. Yeah, we'll just do that. So really what we're filling out here is a annual convention instance. Okay, we can add another logo or another file if we need to. The date, I'm going to say, let's just say it's going to be June 1st, you know, a summer event. And it kicks off at 8 o'clock a.m. And let's maybe make this go through, well, let's see, June 1st is, yeah, actually on a Friday, so that works out. So we'll say it, you know, as a conference that goes through, the weekend. All right. Late registration date, we'll say, I don't know, May 15th, 5 p.m. And then here's the address. So if you don't know the address yet, you need to hit none. Otherwise, if United States or any other country is picked, it's going to make required fields for you, even if you said it's not a required field. So let's see. I guess I'll just say 100 Main Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73. Oh goodness, what is it? I think it's 73012. Contact numbers, so I'll just give mine. And you can put other numbers here if you want. And because we made it a text field, you can put anything you want here. So it's pretty open-ended to give contact information. These don't have any options because we don't actually have any speaker sponsors or vendors in the system. We'll go do that here. and go ahead and hit save. Now we have made 0 considerations as to how this lays out. Okay, that's going to be way later, but this does illustrate that all the content we entered now does get captured by the database and gets echoed on the site. This now has a unique URL and a unique NID or node ID to it, and all of this now makes this a unique thing. So that is what this video is really going to stop at. We wanted to extend the content type of registration event by adding new fields to it, so that when we create registration event instances, which is going to be in our example annual conferences or conventions or any event you can purchase tickets for or has a registration component, we're going to basically fill one of these out that captures really core information. And what this becomes under content is, like I said, kind of the nucleus that other stuff is going to get attached to, like speakers, sponsors, vendors, hotel and lodging information, and registration products are going to be attached to this thing. And that's also what's going to give the effect of this being a unique event experience with unique packages, unique pricing that is unique to that particular moment in time. So if you are enjoying these videos, please subscribe. I hope to be making more. If you've got any questions or comments, please reach out and I will let you guys get to it. That should conclude this video. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.